all y'all, welcome to my channel, and today I want to do something a little less formal. I just felt like getting in front of the camera, sitting down, doing a little bit of knitting, and kind of sharing with you some practical advice I wish I had known much earlier in my knitting journey. I feel like that's one of the really fun things about knitting is I feel like I'm always learning something new. I've been at this for like 20 years now, and I feel like there's still things that I'm like, man, I wish I'd known that sooner. If you want to find out some of the practical pieces of advice I'd wish I'd known much sooner, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and let's knit. As always, quick reminder, down in the description box you will find a list of timestamps to different parts of the video, because even though I really hope that you'll watch through the video at least one time, sometimes you do have to get to something specific, and so timestamps are down below. Also down in the description box you will find a list of materials and resources that I think are relevant to today's video. Some of these will have clearly marked affiliate links. If you click on an affiliate link, it takes you to a shopping website, and if you make a purchase, I make a small commission, which does help support my channel. If you utilize one of my affiliate links, thank you so much. It's so greatly appreciated. And if you don't, that's totally cool. Seriously. I really am truly glad that you're just watching a video with me today. Or, well, not with me, because I'm in the... Anyway, I'm just really glad you're here. The project I'm going to work on today is actually just a really straightforward, this is like a go-to project for me, which is my flat medallion dishcloth. This washcloth is the washcloth that really inspired me to become a knitter, because it's the washcloth I always saw my grandmother knitting. And so I don't work this the exact same way that she did. I've kind of like brought my own pizzazz to it. But if you are interested in this pattern, I do have like a free written up pattern for it. It's not tech edited or anything, but it is free, and I'll leave a link for it down in the description box if you're interested in that. But yeah, let's see, I am at my decrease. So I'm going to just decrease this, and I'm going to just be working on this while I kind of share with you my favorite pieces of advice. And, you know, this is going to be a bit informal, so please share down in the comments any pieces of knitting wisdom, pearls of wisdom, pun totally intended, that you have picked up over the years. I would love to hear about it. Let me just finish this row. I know, it seems like, oh no, not swatching. Please don't say that's one of your piece of advice. But I'm gonna go a little bit further than just say swatch. I wanna say to take the time to learn about the art and craft of swatching. Doing a good swatch is a skill set. It involves skill and a certain amount of knitting knowledge. I am planning to do a video in the coming weeks, months, of how to do an accurate swatch that doesn't lie to you. But I do also have a blog post from a couple years ago where I gave a lot of my advice on how to do an accurate gauge swatch. So I will link that down in the description box if you want to read through that. But also know that that video is coming this year. YouTube plug ahead. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss when that goes live. Sometimes I think knitters take on or feel like, and I've certainly felt this at times, that swatching is like the road bump to starting the project, right? But the truth is, it's not. Swatching is as much a part of knitting as casting on your stitches. You have actually started the project when you do the swatching. The second reason I think knitters avoid swatching or don't like to swatch or decide not to swatch is they feel like, oh, but I'm going to be wasting that yarn. And I get that. What I do when I buy yarn specifically for a project in particular, but I like to, when I buy yarn, I buy an extra ball of yarn that I think of as my swatch ball. And that it does two things. One, it takes the pressure off of me of feeling like, oh man, what if I run out of yarn? I won't feel that way so much because like that's what that skein of yarn was for. It was for swatching. I am using it for its purpose. And I have found that that really helps. I gotta count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have found that has really helped me in terms of getting over my swatch avoidance. Now, do I think that swatching is always necessary? No, I don't think it's always necessary. I think there are projects where it's like, it's a low risk to just go ahead and start and see where you end up. Like, you know, certain scarves, certain shawls, things where maybe fit don't matter as much. You know, live on the edge. Live dangerously if you want. Don't swatch it. See what happens. But just know if you do that, what the risks are. That, you know, the project might not end up as large as you wanted, or it might be too big or too small because you didn't take the time to swatch. And that's okay if you understand that is the risk that you took. But other times, like if you're making a sweater, something where fit really matters, take the time to swatch. I'm actually gonna do a 2-color washcloth. So I'm gonna pull out some pink yarn here. This pink is so not sophisticated, but there's something about pairing like this kind of bubblegum pink with brown that suddenly it feels more sophisticated than it otherwise would be. So, oh, normally I join back here. I made a mistake. I forgot that I wanted to change colors and I needed to change colors before I knitted this row back. So I'm gonna undo this. And actually this, oh my God, the fates aligned because this leads to my next piece of advice. Right now I'm tinking back. Tink means to undo your stitches one by one. Tink got its name because it's knit spelled backwards. Haha, a little bit of knitting lore for you. But at least for me, many times, oftentimes, I come across a mistake in my knitting. It happens. It happens to the most experienced of us. If you're gonna knit, you're gonna make mistakes. At some point, you're gonna have to frog. I have never regretted frogging back when I found a mistake. I have often regretted not frogging back sooner. Now, some mistakes make a piece structurally unsound, like a split stitch. But a lot of times a mistake, whether you choose to fix it or not, is a matter of personal preference. If the mistake doesn't bother you, if you're like, hey, it's part of the character of the project, great. But there have been times I've seen a mistake and I'm like, I don't know, it's really kind of annoying me. And I'm like, oh, can't live with it. I hate this. I'm going to frog back. Is it annoying? Yes. Do you sit there and you think, oh man, it's going to take me so much more time to get back here? Yes. Like that is just time you're never going to get back. But, you know, the truth of the matter is if you knit 5, 10, 20 more rows or rounds of your knitting and you still look back at that mistake and you're like, I gotta fix it. Well, you'll have wasted more time having kept trying to move forward when really the answer was to go back. I will avoid frogging if I absolutely can. Like, I highly recommend getting skilled at utilizing a crochet hook to ladder down to a mistake and then fix it with your crochet hook so you don't have to frog back all your work. But sometimes you have a mistake where either it's too complicated to utilize laddering down and a crochet hook to fix your mistake, or it would take so much time to do it, you might as well just frog back the work. So it might be the solution of last resort, but especially as you become more experienced, you will know when it's like, nope, this is just something I've got to frog. And if it is, bite the bullet and frog. Something else I wish, and this is a big one. This is a big one. Sometimes you have to frog back your work. First of all, lifelines are great. Utilize lifelines. And all lifeline is taking some waste thread and running it through your stitches in a row of stitches and leaving it there so that if you have to frog down, your stitches that are now live off the needle, they won't ladder down farther than that lifeline. Doing a lifeline every 10 rows, every 20 rows, putting in a lifeline after a vertical repeat, that's really, really helpful. And it's just a simple step to do, lifelines. But sometimes you don't. I don't always follow my own advice on this one, okay? Don't always follow my own advice. And sometimes I have to frog back and there's live stitches and I have to get those live stitches back up on the needle. And a really great piece of advice if you're in that situation, if you have live stitches that are off your needle that you need to get back up on your needle and there's no lifeline and you're trying to prevent your stitches from laddering down even more, is to utilize a smaller needle than your project needle. So let's say your project is on a size 9, grab a size 5 needle, a size 4 needle, and use that smaller needle to pick up your live stitches. The reason for that is because when you try to pick up your live stitches with a larger needle, the yarn more easily pulls out and starts to unravel. But if you utilize a smaller needle, that slips into the stitches more easily without pulling or unraveling the stitches that are further down the line. All right. Also, the other thing is, once you've got them back up on that smaller needle, you can just knit them off the smaller needle with your project needle and you'll be fine. This is such a great practical piece of advice that when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, why did I not think of this myself? Why did nobody share this with me? How have I gone this long in my knitting life without knowing this piece of advice? So, I'm here to share it with you. Duplicate stitch. Oh my God, it is amazing. Sometimes it's called Swiss darning, but in duplicate stitch, you utilize a tapestry needle and some scrap yarn normally, but sometimes it's the end of a tail that you have to weave in, to basically retrace the thread path of your stitches. And duplicate stitch can be utilized in a number of ways. One is to, like, you know, in Argyle, traditional Argyle knitting, a lot of times you have those straight lines that cross through the diamonds. Those straight single stitch lines are often done with duplicate stitch because it allows you to go in and basically go over stitches with a different color and paint little pictures with them. It's a little bit of embroidery. You can also utilize duplicate stitch, which I often do, and yes, I have a video about this, but you can utilize duplicate stitch to weave in the ends of your tail. It doesn't work in every single situation, but I would say 90% of the time, I can utilize duplicate stitch to weave in my tail. You know, sometimes you're knitting, say, like socks, or thumbs on gloves, fingers on gloves, and a lot of times you get little holes or little gaps that form where you're joining in new pieces of yarn and such. And knitters can spend quite a bit of time and emotional energy trying to avoid those gaps, avoid those holes. And I really have the attitude of, when they happen, don't sweat it, disguise it. And you can utilize duplicate stitch to disguise those little gaps and holes that can form. But yeah, duplicate stitch is amazing. I highly recommend that you learn it because it has so many great uses. In fact, I should probably just do a video on all the wonders of duplicate stitch because it's so great. It is so amazing. Almost everything in knitting, almost everything can be done in more than one way. When I first learned to knit, I learned the increase knit front and back, and that was the only increase I knew. So when I did patterns, I would just do a knit front and back because that's what I knew to be increases. I didn't know there were other increases out there. And there's nothing wrong with knit front and back, but knit front and back creates a little bar, and sometimes it's called a bar increase, and it's not always discreet. It works great in garter and in ribbing where that little bar kind of mixes in with the purl bumps. But if you're doing stockinette, that bar in the knit front and back stands out. Now, sometimes that's a decorative element and that's a choice, and that can be a really pretty choice. But sometimes you don't want your increases to be so in your face. When I learned about make ones and lifted increases, it was like a revelation. Same thing with binding off. For a long time, I didn't know that there was more than one bind off. I learned the standard chain bind off, which is probably the bind off you learned, and I hated it. Well, hate's a strong word. I really disliked the chain bind off. I found that often my tension was too tight. I didn't particularly enjoy doing it. And then one day, not that long ago, I learned the decrease bind off. Yes, I have a video on it. And it was like mind blown. Just learning that. And same thing with decreases, increases, bind offs, cast ons, even how you knit continental versus English style knitting. There's variations within picking and throwing, and there's so many ways to do things in knitting and to approach things in knitting. And that to me is one of the fun things about knitting, is all the ways that you can go about doing something. And if you don't like utilizing one method, there will probably be another method out there to learn. The more important thing is to know what it is that you want to accomplish so that you can go about finding out, well, what is another way to do this. That being said, if all you ever want to do with knitting is knit garter stitch and scarves and never learn any of those other skills, that's great too. Like, it's awesome if you just find the enjoyment of garter stitch and you're perfectly happy and you're enjoying yourself. That's great. Don't ever let anyone think that you are less of a knitter because you are only doing one thing with your knitting. Oh, that dropped. Lovely. Okay. Well, you got to see the ugly red cable that... fudge. Spend some time, just like I said, learn how the skills necessary to work a good, accurate gauge swatch. It's also worth your time to learn good finishing skills. It's one of the make it or break it stages in knitting. We often talk about wanting something to look handmade versus homemade. And I always think like, well, what's the difference between something looking handmade versus homemade? And it's really, I feel like a certain attention to detail, but having a certain level of polish to the work at the end. And a lot of that in knitting happens through the finishing process. And that includes washing and blocking. So yeah, learning how to hand wash your knits properly, learning what blocking is and what it doesn't have to be. And by that I mean, a lot of times people hear blocking and they think that means utilizing pins, doing pin blocking. I don't think of blocking as only pin blocking. I think of pin blocking as one technique, one way of blocking your knits. A lot of projects don't require pin blocking necessarily, but all your hand knits after you're done knitting do require being washed and being laid out flat and shaped and kind of giving its final form. And that is what blocking to me is. It's kind of giving your knit stitches a chance to relax and take on their final shape, because while you're knitting, your yarn is under a great deal of tension and you have a little bits of unevenness, and it's amazing what just hand washing your knit can do and then laying it out flat and shaping it nicely. It's a wonder what that can do for your project. So I don't think there's any substitute really for just properly washing your knits and blocking your knits. Some things you do have to pin block lace in order to get the final result that you want. And knowing what those situations are is a skill, and it's part of learning the craft of knitting, because finishing your knitting is just as much a part of knitting as working a purl stitch or a knit stitch is. All right, so here I am with my project. I got a good start. I love the pink and the brown together. I think it's so fun. I think the brown with the pink just gives it a little hint of sophistication, but here I am with it. And yeah, that is, I would say that's all the practical advice that I have that I wish I learned sooner, but I think that's a good start. Some of this stuff that I talked about is a much deeper topic, and I do have videos planned in the future to go dive deeper into those topics. If you are interested in those, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so that when those videos do go live, you do not miss them. I would love to hear from you down in the comments below if you have any advice that you wish that you had learned sooner as a knitter, whether it's practical advice or theoretical advice, like just whatever it is that you wish you had known about knitting sooner, please let us know down in the comments below so we can all like just learn from each other. Because that's part of the fun of being in an online knitting community, is we have that opportunity to learn from another. Because I learned so much from all y'all. I really do. I've learned so much, whether it's here on YouTube or over on various social media. I'm very active on Twitter and Instagram, by the way. Wherever it is, I've learned so much. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if so, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your knitting friends. Liking videos, sharing videos, commenting on videos are all great ways to support my channel and let YouTube know that this is a space worth checking out, so I can grow my channel and keep improving it. That's my goal. Thank you so much for knitting with me today. I hope that you have a wonderful day, evening, weekend, weeknight, whenever you may be watching this. And as always, happy health and happy making. Bye. Okay, so I'm actually going to switch colors right now. I need to get my project bag. There we go. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. No, it's not. It's not fine. My arm tangled up there. Okay, I'm making... Alright, there we go. Onto the floor with you. Pick up my paint. What the heck? What the heck? Remember what I was saying about frogging? Situation just arised. What's wrong with me? Because I'm trying to knit and talk at the same time. This is what happens. It's okay. I'm an experienced knitter. I know how to deal with this. I didn't really, I had a rough outline for today's video, but I didn't like have like a real like scripty script, scripty script, By the way, one last thing. There are going to be a couple of video suggestions that pop up if you would like to watch some more videos from me. And so, yeah, you can just click on one of those videos and we can keep this party going. If you're like, I have to get on with the rest of my day, get it. So that's it. That's really it. I'm about to run out of space on my card and I'm hungry. I need to have lunch. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.